Dragonwood was designed by Darren Kisgen and published by Gamewright as a push-your-luck game where everybody is heading off into the mystical forest with their adventurers, hoping to gather enough adventurers to be able to roll a set of dice, all with the hopes of capturing creatures and collecting items, with the ultimate hope of slaying the 2 dragons to earn enough points to win. I'm not gonna lie to you, this is actually a game that at first I kind of dreaded the thought of playing it, because this is a game that is meant to be played by families and with kids and you know, not exactly adults for that matter. And especially with the fact that I brought this to my game group, which at the time we were all, well, at least in our teens, and I brought a game out to be played with kids. So I was a little afraid to see how this would go, but I do know that there are some kids games that are actually well enjoyed by adults, and it's always possible that this could be one of them. Is it? Let's find out. The theme of your being adventurers wandering into the magical forest to try and capture these creatures and slay these dragons and capture all these magical items is completely pasted on. In reality, you're just playing cards that are in a sequence of numbers or a set of colors in an attempt to roll a certain amount of dice to really just hopefully match the numbers that are on the cards for whatever way you're trying to capture the creatures, and hope you get the numbers to capture them. And at no point during this game did I ever feel like I was really adventuring into the forest and trying to capture those creatures or those items, or trying to slay the dragons or the bears or the ogres or whatever. Now, in a game like this that's meant to be for kids, it's not that big of a deal, because kids aren't gonna really care about how closely the game is to the mechanisms, or how close the theme is to the mechanisms. Kids normally are not gonna care about that. I don't even think parents would necessarily care too much. Maybe if the theme was supposed to be a darker theme, maybe they would care then a little bit. But for a game that's just going into the wilderness and trying to kill a dragon, I don't think they would care. So like I said, even though the theme has nothing to do with the mechanisms of the game, it's really not that big of a deal considering the audience that this game is meant for. When it comes to the components, the only issue I have with them is the dice. Now, I will say the dice themselves are nice. They're nice and ingrained. The numbers are ingrained on the dice, and they're easy to tell apart from the actual face, so that you'll be able to tell them apart pretty easily. The problem is that while they are ingrained into the dice, the numbers are just painted into there. Over the time, if you are rough with the dice, that paint can easily chip off. In fact, after the first couple plays that I did of this game, we started to lose some of the paint on the numbers. But as long as you're not rough with the dice, that shouldn't be too big of an issue. Other than that, though, the dice are very nice quality. I like the artwork on the cards. They're nice little cartoony things I think that kids will enjoy. And the numbers are, for the most part, easy to see. There is, I think, one color, a lightish blue on a white background, that I think might have been a bit concerning. If you're colorblind, you might have an issue with seeing that. But other than that, the artwork for the cards are nice. The numbers are pretty easy to see. The event cards are pretty easy to read as well as that lucky ladybug thing there. And also, the monsters themselves, as well as the items that you're trying to collect, are, for the most part, they're pretty easy to see. The symbology for the different ways to try and capture the creatures and the items are pretty easy to tell apart from each other. There's also various colors that can help you differentiate. So overall, component quality, very nice. The game is also not hard to learn at all. On your turn, you either add a card from the draw pile to your hand, or you play a set of cards in one of 3 different ways to try to capture a creature. The more cards you play, the more dice you get to roll, You roll the dice, compare them to the value that you're trying to meet or exceed, and if you've done that, you get the creature or you get the item that you're trying to collect. There's also these event cards that can spring up from the monster deck, and if you draw one, you just do what it says. And in the adventure deck, there's these lucky ladybugs, where if you draw one, you just discard that, and then you draw 2 cards instead of just 1. It also doesn't take long either. The box says 20 minutes. I'm confident once everybody is up to speed and knows what they're doing, 20 minutes is going to happen more often than not, possibly even faster. Because this is meant to be a filler game. And the way it also works is that some cards get taken out during the setup. So you're not actually going to be taking out all the creatures, which can also cut some time down, which is something that I like. I also think that this game scales very well. I've played it with 2, 3, and 4, and I did enjoy it with all 4 of them, all 3 of them. The gameplay, I do think works pretty well. I like the idea of having 3 different ways to try to defeat the creatures or capture the items, and especially the fact that those 3 different ways are available to everything. There aren't any creatures or items where they're like, this can only be screamed at, this can only be struck, this can only be stomped on. And instead, they're all given that opportunity. So I think that's going to add a good amount of replay value because of the different ways that you can do it. I like also that because there's 3 different ways, there's 3 different requirements. I'm not convinced that the requirements are balanced. It does seem like stomping on something is the hardest thing to pull off because you gotta get a bunch of the same exact number, and screaming, it seems a lot easier to do. In the games that I've played, we found ourselves screaming at something a lot more often than anything else, but I think it tries to balance itself out by having the stomping portion of it being the easiest to pull off while being the hardest to get the cards for. While screaming, I think he has had the moments where it's easiest to get the cards to scream, but it's also the ones where you need the highest amounts to capture the creature. So I think it does try to balance itself out. I also really like the idea of having the different enchantments in the game. This allows you to kind of create a little bit of customization for yourselves to make you differentiate a little bit amongst the players, so that not everybody is going to be the same player throughout the game. And also, because that these enchantments can come up in a random order, it's also going to provide a little bit of replay value to the game. I also do like the fact that the enchantments, while they are cool, they're not overpowered, so that it doesn't really feel like you have to have an enchantment if you want to have a chance of winning the game. You can win this game without getting any enchantments whatsoever, but having a way to differentiate yourself between the rest of the players and having a nice little power-up that you can use is always a nice touch. The idea of the Lucky Ladybugs and the event cards is okay. Thankfully, if you do not like these, you do have the option to remove them, as well as maybe even a couple enchantment hints that you don't like. If there's any enchantments you don't like, you can also remove them from the game, which is nice. I do like that there is a way to basically customize the deck to kind of help hit what the players want a little bit. The one thing I do not like, though, is that there is a ton of luck in this game. And there is a little bit of mitigation, like I said. You can try to play more cards to try to mitigate the luck. But I also do like the fact that there is some pressure luck, where you can basically try to play less cards and hope that you get the numbers that you need to make it. And if you don't make it, you're not necessarily screwed too much, because if you fail, you simply just discard a card out of your hand. So it's not too punishing if you mess up. However, that does not change the fact that there is a ton of luck in this game. There is luck in the dice that you roll. There is luck in the cards that you draw for your adventurers, and even for the different creatures that could come up. So if you are somebody who does not like to have games with high amounts of luck, this would not be a game that you would like, because there is a ton of luck in this game. And like I said, there is some mitigation to it, and there is some pressure luck to it, which is what I like, but there is still a ton of luck. There is also a decent amount of replay value to the game. Like I said before, the 3 different ways that you can try to deal with the creatures, the different enchantments that are in the game, and the fact that during the setup, you actually have to remove a certain amount of cards from the game before you set up the encounter deck. So what that could mean that there are some creatures that might not get seen, there may be some events that might never show up, there might be some enchantments that might never see the light of day. And because of that a little set of customization, that does add a nice little set of replay value there, as well, like I said, as the different ways to use the cards, and also the idea that when you play the cards, you always have the option of playing less or playing more. With the different ways to play the cards, the different ways to set up the deck, and the amount of times that a set of monsters or a set of enchantments or some events could be removed entirely and might never be seen, does add a nice decent set of replayability to this. Overall, this actually turned out to be a pretty good experience. This game actually was a bit of a surprise to me and my game group when I introduced this. They actually had a pretty good time playing this. We found ourselves just enjoying the simplicity of it. We found ourselves cracking jokes the whole time about what we were doing in the game. If you are looking for a nice, simple little family game to play with your family or with your kids or whatnot, or maybe if you're looking for a nice, simple little filler, this is one I might take a look at. I'm going to give Dragonwood a 7 out of 10. So those are my thoughts on Dragonwood. With all that said, I want to know what your thoughts are on it. Let me know in the comments and we can have a discussion. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. If you want to learn my thoughts on other games, or if you want to just see more videos from me, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more tutorials, reviews, and unboxings. Thank you all as always so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.